Dead end. blended a number of different types of horror, jump scares and blood and guts and psychological horror and traps and puzzle solving. But it's a survival horror game at its core. It's about scarcity of resources and trying to sort of keep your wits about you and survive the next 30 seconds, the next 2 minutes.
See, and I love that about this game, because instead of it just being like, oh, you have unlimited supply to shoot all the, crazy alien characters that are coming at you, you really have to think about how you're going to use those last couple bullets. Maybe you light this guy on fire instead. Maybe this guy you shoot doesn't stay down. And I love that classic horror thing where you shoot some guy, he goes down, and you walk by, and then he's actually just pretending to be dead. So you have that classic horror jump that I love about this game. And I also really want to talk about the environment of this game, because it's so lush. The dynamic lighting, the animation. Talk a little bit about the technology that went into creating this landscape.
So when Tango started making this game, they looked at technology and decided they wanted to use id Tech 5 as the basis for the game, because they felt like it was very adaptable. But obviously, id Tech was designed by id to make first-person shooters, first-person games, and being a third-person survival horror game has different demands and requirements. And so this is a heavily modified version of id Tech 5 to support third-person cameras, to do a lot of the things you were talking about, like dynamic lighting and shadows, because as a survival horror game, you really need those things to set the right tone and to create environments that Sebastian is playing in that feel very realistic and create that sense of immersion that's so important to a survival horror game.
There's this one moment in part of the gameplay that's been released where you have to hide inside what looks like a locker, and all you see are the 3 little slits of light as this guy's with a chainsaw trying to chase you down. And I notice with myself, I'm breathing heavier. I'm so involved in just that, and you don't see anything. All you see is these 3 little slits, and it's so powerful. When you take away all that extra stuff, it really made it feel like you were really in that moment with the character. What I also really love is the sound design. The very beginning, where he's hanging upside down, and he's kind of swaying back and forth.
Swinging yourself back and forth, yeah.
Yeah, you hear the rope creak. You hear the little drops of blood and the sloshing as he's cutting up bodies in the other room. I mean, how important was it for you guys to capture all of that sound to add to the richness of the landscape?
I think they do an excellent job of using 2 things. Number one is the music that you referenced. I think is terrifically atmospheric and used in the right places to set a certain tone. And then the other is the sound effects themselves, and not just the atmospheric stuff like the sound of dripping or the squishing as you're walking over some dead bodies or whatever, but also using different sound effects at key moments where it's finding that balance of the highs and lows, right? If it's always at 10 and it's constant combat and tension, then you essentially become numb to it after a certain period of time, because it's unrelenting. And I think what Shinji is very good at, what makes him a terrific game designer, is the ability to find those peaks and valleys and to do them in such a way that they don't become predictable, right? It's not, let's have some dialogue, let's do some exploration, let's do combat, and then repeat. It's mixing up those things, and when you get it, and this time you open a door, the last 2 have had nobody behind it, so you're just absolutely certain that this time there's somebody in there, except there's not.
Right.
And so now you're even more tense, because you're like, okay, well, I know it's coming. I'm not just going to walk through the rest of this game. So using sound effects sometimes as you're walking through an empty room and they just play a quick sound effect, it scares the hell out of you.
Yes.
Nothing actually happened. And so it's playing with the player's emotions and keeping them off balance. I think the sound design does a great job of enhancing that experience.
If you guys get a chance, go to the website at Evil Within, because they have this really great footage of not gameplay, of people playing the game, and you're watching their faces. And I love it, because some people are like, ugh, get all grossed out by what they're looking at. So many of them actually jump at certain points in the game, and that's something you can't fake. It's people that are actually playing it, and that's their visceral reaction to this game.
One of the challenges that we found is, we can show gameplay like this, and survival horror is not something that you look at in 20 or 30 seconds and you can kind of wrap your head around it as well. It's something that's best experienced, in the dark in your living room with the surround sound on, and playing it for long stretches of time. And so we felt like, well, showing people who are doing that, who are sitting down and playing for extended periods of time, and their reactions to the game, we felt like was a pretty powerful way to say, like, look, this is what we're doing. Like, it's survival horror, and it's very scary.
Yes.
And you don't have to take our word for it. Like, check out these poor son of a guns who had to sit there and go through all this.
And they're alone in a room. It's kind of got green, creepy
stuck
lighting.
In a closet. Yeah, we stuck them in a closet with a little camera, and it was funny. Like after 10 minutes, you could tell they all forgot that the camera was there, and they were into the game. And as a result, the reactions you see from them are really good. And it was a fun way to sort of highlight what the game is about and what it's trying to do for folks like yourself who love being scared and
I love being frightened. There's nothing like it when you are actually totally committed into that moment and it scares you and then you kind of laugh. I always scream and then I laugh at myself because I can't believe I just got scared like that. But yeah, and the fact that it changes every time, like you die this way, you come back to life, you do that exact same scenario, it's not going to be the same.
It is a game that has a dynamic element to it that, again, it's difficult to appreciate when you're watching it demoed because you see somebody playing it and you think like, well, that was all scripted to happen that way. But the fact of the matter is the game does have a lot of dynamic elements. The way the AI will react or move will be different. If you die and replay the scenario, they're not going to do the exact same thing. If you
That's so cruel. We're going to try and go back and redo it. It's like, nope, that won't work this time.
If you shoot them in the head, like sometimes they're actually dead and sometimes they're not dead. They're laying there trying to draw you in because one of the ways you dispose of corpses is to light them on fire. So they will go down as if they were shot and wait for you to get close and then jump up and attack you. And if they do it one time, the next time they might not. But just the fact that you don't actually know and you can't really predict how the enemies are going to react, whether or not that bullet is going to kill the guy or not, just adds more of that uncertainty to the game that never lets you feel comfortable and in control of what's going on, which again is part of sort of creating this environment and this tension for a good survival horror game.
Which I think is what's so unique about this game, and one of my favorite things about it, it really is all about creating that tension and keeping the player off balance.
Yep.
It'll be awesome. It's
and obviously, you know, it is a game that allows you to have some choice in how you move through it. So you can choose to be stealthy. You know, you'll see situations where Sebastian is sneaking through and trying to go undetected. You can choose to fight an enemy. You can choose to, no, I'm going to hide, like you were talking about, and go find in the locker. But again, you don't ever know, like, this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer. There's a few times where you get some enemies that it's pretty clear you can't harm or kill, and you just have to run. But it's all of the ones in between where you're like, well, I have 2 bullets. Like, maybe I can kill that guy, or like, maybe I'm going to die badly. And it's that uncertainty and allowing you the flexibility to figure out how you want to handle a situation. Are you going to leave the traps in?
All units, 1199 Beacon Mental Hospital.
There's something wrong with this place. God damn it! Doctor? Am I going crazy?
Will you be able to live with yourself knowing what I'm gonna make you do?